Okay, so the case study that we'll be looking at, this is one of the most classical case studies which are, explored when we are trying to understand what we mean by system dependability. Okay, so this was an Airbus 320 accident which happened while a Lufthansa flight was landing at Warsaw Airport. The flight was flying from Frankfurt to Warsaw in the year 1993. So there was a certain glitch in the software. The software, the ultimate, the introspection which was done, all the interrogations and everything which was done about the why this accident happened. It was finally concluded that there were software was implicated as the cause of the accident. Okay, so they said that it is the fault of the software. That was the final decision of the committee. But we will look into the fact that there were many other socio-technical factors which played a very significant role in the software not behaving as desired. Okay, however, the important thing to understand is that the software behaved exactly as it was specified. Okay, so which particular property are we talking about? We are talking about software reliability. Okay, it was a very reliable software, and you can understand that the flight control system, that's the software that we are talking about. The flight control system which runs on an aircraft, in any aircraft, you understand the critical nature of that software. It's an extremely safety critical software, and if there is a failure of this software, then you understand that the effects of the failure are catastrophic. You can have loss of human lives as a direct consequence of this failure. Okay, so it was ensured that the software was very reliable. But what we will see through this case study is that it was not dependable. Okay, so let's see why. So what happened? Okay, so these were the conditions on the day of the accident. So while the accident happened while the flight was landing at Warsaw Airport, so there was very bad weather. Okay, that was the first thing. So there was torrential rain going on. Okay, and there was also very strong winds which were continuously changing directions and those kind of things going on. Now these are very important. These two are very important factors which led to the software resulting in a crash. Okay, now let's see what happened. The main reason was that after the flight landed, okay, touched ground, the brake system of that aircraft did not engage. Okay, and it did not engage on time as when it was required, and as a result, by the time the brake system got activated, there was not enough runway left for the plane to stop. Okay, and hence as the plane was approaching the end of the runway, it had to steer towards the right, and it had to go off the runway, and then it crashed, and we'll look at that. But if we have to do an actual analysis, not a blame game, but we want to understand why this accident happened, then we have to understand that there were three main contributory causes. Okay, first, the most important, which we were talking about, the socio-technical factor, how human operators or information provided by human operators can lead to operational failure. Okay, so that was one of the first causes. The pilots of that aircraft were given outdated information about wind speed and wind direction. Now we won't say it's completely the fault of the air traffic control tower. Okay, they are the ones who provide this information to pilots just before they land. The problem was it was a very bad weather. Okay, and the wind was it was very strong winds which were blowing, and it was continuously changing. It was continuously changing direction, and direction and speed play a very significant role when an aircraft is landing. Okay, we will discuss this in detail. Second, the pilots also failed to notice, right, that there are some onboard sensors. So the onboard sensors were providing some wind information which was not consistent with what the ATC or the air traffic control tower what they were reporting. There was some inconsistency, so they failed to notice that, and they did not cross check or verify with the ATC tower. Okay, as a result, what happened was that the flight approached the runway at a speed which was higher than the recommended speed, and that was one of the most important factors why the aircraft ran out of runway. Okay, the third thing is the software. The main this is where the software, the flight control system comes into the picture. So the braking system that did not get deployed because the software was under the impression that the aircraft had not touched ground. Okay, now this is something which you have to understand. When we are focusing on the software component, we have to understand how the braking system on a flight, when it lands, how the braking system operates. Okay, you also have to understand that these flight control systems, they are operated by pilots, but there is a intermediate level or layer within the the human input and the software controls, the hardware controls, which is a software, the flight control system software, and which decides whether the inputs provided by the human operator, the pilots, should be propagated to the hardware controls or not. So suppose, think of a system when the flight, the pilots or the pilots are compromised. Maybe the flight is hijacked or whatever, the pilots are compromised, and while the flight is in air, suddenly the pilot decides to engage the brakes. Should the brakes be engaged? The flight control system has its own set of checks to ensure whether the brakes should actually be engaged or not, based on the pilot's input, and those checks were not getting satisfied. So the braking control system which is there on within your flight control system, this brake control system, that behaved exactly as it was specified in the requirement specification. It was not malfunctioning. This is what we have to understand. It was there were no bugs or errors in the software. So this brake control system component within the flight control system, it was absolutely reliable, but it was unsafe. Okay, and this is where we say that dependability properties are interdependent. Okay, so what was the problem? It was reliable. There were no bugs or errors. This Airbus A320 was operating in different flights across the globe. No one was facing this problem. What happened? So the system specifications, they did not, in the specification itself, there was an error. And what was the error? It did not consider the landing conditions which were encountered on that particular day while the Lufthansa flight was landing at Warsaw. The landing conditions which were encountered, that was never thought of by the system engineers, and as a result the system specifications did not define the rules for this particular condition. Okay, so we have spoilers, we have flaps on the wings. If you have ever taken a flight, and if you have observed, before the flight takes off, you will see that the pilot checks those flaps on the wings, whether the flaps are working or not, and these flaps are actually engaged during landing. So what does the braking system actually do? So when you are braking engaging your brakes, there are two things which happen. One is you have your engine, that propeller, right? That propeller starts to, if it is rotating in a clockwise direction, when the braking system gets engaged, it starts, rotating in the anti-clockwise direction. Okay. So basically you are running your engine backwards. Okay, this is called reverse thrust. This is one component, and the other is to increase air drag. Okay, how do you increase air drag? So you engage the spoilers. So those flaps, they are basically raised to increase the resistance of the air, of the wind. Okay. So as I was saying that this braking system, it is very risky if this braking system suddenly gets activated in the air while the flight is in the air. So that's why we implement a concept of fly-by-wire. Okay, so what fly-by-wire means is that the flight control system has its own inbuilt checks to verify that the aircraft is actually on the ground before the brakes are deployed. Okay, so if you don't get the proper signals from the sensors which are there on your flight control system, if they do not indicate that the flight is on the ground, then the pilot's commands to engage the brake are blocked, okay, by the flight control system. Now, what are these indicators? Okay, what are these indicators that we are talking about? These are basically some sensor values. Some sensors are there which are sending some values to the flight control system, and based on those values the checks are done, and those checks are mainly two, okay, which specify that the aircraft is on the ground. Okay, what is the first check? The first check is weight on wheels. So basically, when the there are sensors on your in your landing gear or the wheels. So there is a shock absorber, there is a sensor. When your flight touches ground, the sensor senses that there is some weight on the wheels. Okay, so the wheel struts, they get compressed to a certain value. Okay, now the check which was there in the previous flight control system software of Airbus A320 said that there has to be weight on both the wheels. So that sensor on both the wheels must give the signal that there is a weight on the wheel struts. Both the left wheel and the right wheel must give that feedback. Okay, there is a second check. It's not an and condition, it's a or condition. There is a second check which talks about wheel rotation. So if the aircraft touches ground, the wheels, the moment they touch ground, they will start rotating. Okay, so the wheel sensors, they check if the rotation speed is greater than 72 knots. Okay, only when that happens, it implies that the aircraft is on the runway. Okay, it has touched ground and it is running on the runway. Okay, the critical thing to understand is that the braking system is deployed if either of these conditions are true. Any one of these conditions are true, the braking system will be engaged. Okay, so what is the assumption? The assumption here is that it would never be the case that the aircraft is on the ground and both these conditions are false. Okay, that was the underlying assumption between the software. Okay, so the designers, the system engineers, they decided that it will never be the case that the aircraft is on the ground and both these conditions are sensors are giving us false feedback. Okay, but unfortunately on that day that's exactly what happened. Now we will analyze why that happened. Before that, we look on the algorithm. It's a simple algorithm. If there is weight on both wheels, or if the left wheel is turning, if there is not weight on both wheels, that means only one of the wheels has touched ground, the other is still in the air. This is possible. We will discuss this later. This is possible. So if there is not, if we do not have weight on both wheels, then we have to check whichever wheel has the weight, whether it is turning or not, whether it is rotating at that speed of greater than 72 knots. Okay, so if either of these conditions are satisfied, then the braking system is deployed. Okay, so what we understand is that both these conditions were violated on that day, and hence the braking system did not get deployed. Now, how did those two conditions get violated? For condition 1, the plane landed on one wheel. Okay, why this happened we'll discuss. And second, the wheel on which it landed, that wheel was not rotating. Hence, both conditions 1 and 2 were violated, and the software did not allow the brakes to be deployed. Okay, so the software was working fine. This was given in the specification. It was following the specification. Okay. Now let us try to understand, why these two conditions got violated. Let's look at what went wrong. Okay, why did these two conditions get violated? So we discussed the three main causes, right? And the first thing we said was that outdated information about wind speed and direction was provided by the ATC. Okay, so what the ATC tower suggested to the pilots was that there was something called crosswind. Crosswind means crosswind is also known as wind shear. So wind shear means if your plane is moving, the direction of the wind and the direction of the plane, they are orthogonal to each other. They are perpendicular to each other. Okay. If that is the case, so if the plane is moving from towards the front and your wind is blowing from left to right or from right to left, then it's basically crosswind. Now whenever there is crosswind, the pilots, they basically bank on one side while they are touching the ground. Okay, the idea is that this wind shear will push down. So if it is blowing from right to left, it will bank slightly on the right, and the right wheel will only touch ground. Only this wheel will touch ground, and due to this wind shear, the left side wing or the left side of the plane will be pushed down by the wind. That's the idea. That's the way planes land when there is a crosswind. When there is a tailwind, then the pilots don't bank on any one side. The pilots land absolutely straight. So both wheels touch ground simultaneously. But when there is a crosswind, okay, or when there is wind shear, the pilots bank on one side, and this is the standard procedure. Okay, so this was not wrong. But because it was a very stormy and windy and rainy day, the wind was continuously changing direction. Now based on this information, the pilots make some calculations. Okay, so they if you have a wind blowing from the side, you have to apply an additional force for the flight to stay on track. Okay, someone is trying to dislocate you from your track, so you will have to apply an additional force. So there is an additional thrust which is provided by the engine. Now just before touchdown, what happened was that this crosswind changed to tailwind. Okay, so what does a tailwind mean? The tailwind is like this. So crosswind is basically blowing from the side of the aeroplane. The tailwind is basically blowing from the back of the aeroplane. Okay, it's like someone is pushing the plane from the tail. Okay, so it's like so you were already applying an additional thrust, and now because the crosswind suddenly changed to a tailwind, you got an additional jerk from the wind, and your flight got even more higher velocity. Now what happened due to that? This tailwind had a speed of 20 knots. So the flight, the Airbus A320 flight, now with this increased speed of 20 knots, it hit the ground at 170 knots. Okay, it was supposed to hit the ground at a lower velocity, but due to this change of wind direction, it got an additional thrust from the wind and the speed increased and it hit the ground at 170 knots. Now first thing what you have to understand is what happens now. In your runway, in a conventional runway, there is a buffer area within which the flight must touch ground. Okay, and then you have your runway which ends over here, and after that this is end of runway. Okay, so this is very important. Your flight must touch ground before this line. Okay, but then because this this tailwind, what happened was that the first touchdown happened roughly 770 meters after this threshold. It got an additional jerk, so it could not land or touch ground within the threshold area, and it touched ground after 770 meters into the runway. So first of all, we are now getting less distance for the flight to stop. Second, it has an additional velocity, so it has to apply stronger brakes. It will take more time to come to a stop. Okay, and it has less runway available. Next, what happened, because the information was there is crosswind, there was a banking. Okay, so the pilots had banked on the right hand side, and hence only the right wheel touched ground. It was expecting the wind shear to bring down this left hand side, but because the crosswind changed to a tailwind, this does not happen. Okay, so the right wheel has touched ground. The pilots are expecting the wind shear to bring down the left wheel to the ground, but that does not happen. So condition 1 gets violated, weight on both wheels. That condition is violated. Now we have weight on only one wheel. But then this right wheel which touched ground, this should have started rotating. The second condition, it should have started rotating at a speed greater than 72 knots. But that did not happen. And what was the reason? The reason is something called aquaplaning. Aquaplaning is basically when there is water on the runway. Because it was a very rainy day, the runway was wet, and when you have water on the runway, there is a very thin layer of water between the wheels or the struts and the runway, and the wheels don't rotate, they basically touch and they basically skid. They skid on the runway. They are not rotating. Okay, they are skidding on the surface of the runway. That's called aquaplaning. So weight on both wheels violated. The right hand side wheel which touched the ground, it was aquaplaning, it was skidding, and hence it was not rotating. So second condition also got violated. So the sensors were telling the software that the flight is still in air, it has not yet touched ground, and hence the brake system was not getting engaged, although the pilots had given the signal. Now what happened? First touchdown happened at this point, 770 meters into the gateway. The brakes got engaged only when 9 seconds later, this left hand side wheel finally touched ground. So the first condition got activated, weight on both wheels. But by the time it got activated, 9 seconds had elapsed, and 9 seconds on the runway at full speed is a huge distance covered. Okay, so what happened basically is that the left gear touched ground somewhere at this point. So now I have even less runway left to stop the plane. Okay, now the moment it touched, there is a certain delay for the this sensor signals to be captured and propagated to the software system, and the software activates the hardware controls for the full brake, activating the spoilers and the engine thrust reversing. This takes certain lag, and that lag was an additional 4 seconds. So by the time the full brakes were applied, the amount of runway which was left is very less. Okay, and this was too short for the aircraft to stop, and the pilots had to veer the aircraft off the runway to the right, and it basically hit some forest, trees and all, and it caught fire. Okay, so what is the conclusion? The conclusion is that it is not possible for us to create 100% dependable systems. Okay, so a reliable software which is behaving according to the specification cannot be assumed to be safe just because it is reliable. Okay, So even when the software is behaving in a reliable manner, failures can occur, accidents can happen, and the effects can be catastrophic. Okay, so now we'll look at that a flight simulation video of this incident.
$2,500.